Well, I've been
connections.
enslaved for several years now by a Brazilian family that torture me, and they make me go do sing and stuff.
Go back to Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, you know, they whip me. No,
No, seriously.
no.
For almost a decade, Axl Rose disappeared. He locked himself inside a Malibu mansion, gained 50 pounds, and barely stepped outside. People thought his career was over. They thought his voice was gone forever. But then something happened in 2016 that shocked everyone. Slash came back. Duff came back. And suddenly, the band that destroyed itself was selling out stadiums again. By 2024, critics were saying his voice sounded better than it had in 30 years. How does a man rebuild everything after burning it all down? And what did those years of silence really cost him? Axl Rose came into the world on February 6, 1962, in Lafayette, Indiana. And nothing about his beginning felt steady. His mother was only 16 and still in high school. His father was 20 and already known around town for trouble. Their relationship collapsed when Axl was about 2, and the house at 2375 North 24th Street slowly turned into a place filled with tension instead of comfort. Lafayette wasn't gentle with him either. Years later, he would say he grew up inside a maniacally dysfunctional household, and you can almost feel how those words sat heavy on him even decades later. Right around the time everything was falling apart, his father took him during a brief abduction. It didn't last long because his mother fought to get him back, but the damage stayed with him. Soon after, she married Stephen Bailey, who adopted Axl and changed his name to William Bruce Bailey. From that moment forward, Axl spent his childhood believing a lie about who he was. He grew up thinking Bailey was his real father, never knowing the story buried underneath that new last name. As the years passed, that false identity became a locked door in his life. It held back confusion, anger, and a sense of being lost in his own family. All of it settled deep in him, waiting for the moment it would explode. Life under Stephen Bailey made everything even harder. The house was a strict Pentecostal world filled with rules, sermons, and punishments that went far past normal discipline. Axl later said he was beaten consistently, and because it started so young, he believed this was how families were supposed to be. Bailey's abuse spread to Axl's siblings too, especially his sister, and that left Axl carrying a mix of rage and helplessness. He tried to protect her, even as he was getting hurt himself. Years later, he explained that the trauma left him feeling like a screaming 2-year-old trapped inside his own mind. That feeling never left him. It followed him into adulthood, onto stages, into songs, and into moments where his anger seemed to burst out of nowhere. And behind all that, another painful memory waited. During the abduction when he was 2 years old, Axl said he was sexually abused by his biological father. He told Rolling Stone that he remembered something unspeakable happening to him, and something horrible happening to his mother when she tried to rescue him. Those memories shaped his music. They shaped the way he saw the world. Songs like 14 Years carried pieces of that childhood pain. The emotional damage stayed so raw that he believed some of his adult health problems came from psychosomatic self-punishment. Every reminder of those early years sat like a shadow over everything he became. When he turned 17, that locked door inside him finally opened. He found papers that revealed the truth about his name and his real father. In that moment, everything snapped into focus. He stopped being William Bruce Bailey and reclaimed the name he felt belonged to him, Axl Rose. Soon after, he took a Greyhound bus straight out of Indiana and headed to Los Angeles. It wasn't only a physical escape, it was a clean break from years of lies, abuse, and suffocating rules. He went looking for a life that wasn't built out of other people's decisions, and in the chaos of Los Angeles, he would build something that shook the world. When he arrived on December 19, 1982, he had almost nothing except the need to run far from his past. He stayed on couches, bounced between tiny rooms, and worked odd jobs to survive. One of those jobs was a night manager position at Tower Records on Sunset. The music scene swallowed him whole. He reunited with Izzy Stradlin, the old friend who understood where he came from, and the two of them started forming bands like Rapid Fire and AXL. They even managed to record a demo in the summer of 1982 1983, but their lives were messy. Street fights, heroin use, and sleepless nights became normal. These raw days ended up shaping songs like Welcome to the Jungle and One in a Million. Because he lived everything, he later screamed into microphones. Hollywood Rose came next. Axl, Izzy, Chris Webber, and Robbie Christ pulled together a band full of raw talent. In January 1984, they recorded a 5-song demo with tracks like Anything Goes and Shadow of Your Love. They were hungry, but nothing came easy. Their shows were chaotic. At one gig, Webber swung his guitar too close and hit Axl in the mouth. The fight that followed split the band in half. Slash stepped in to replace Webber. Izzy left in frustration. And by the end of 1984, Hollywood Rose fell apart after one last show at the Troubadour. It was quick, messy, and loud, leaving behind demos that decades later would be released as the roots of Guns N' Roses. After the collapse, Axl tried fronting L.A. Guns for a short time, but his style didn't match their direction. Still, something important happened during that period. In March 1985, after a heated argument with manager Raz Q, the idea came up to merge the remaining members of Hollywood Rose with L.A. Guns. At first, it sounded desperate. Then, it sounded like destiny. Axl, Izzy, Slash, Duff McKagan, and Steven Adler came together. And by June 1985, the classic Guns N' Roses lineup snapped into place. It wasn't smooth, but the friction created fire. They were poor, stubborn, and hungry for something bigger than their surroundings. When Slash and Duff joined, the band fell into a strange rhythm. They lived together in filthy apartments near Hollywood Boulevard, scraping by on about $5 a day. Their rooms were small, hot, and stacked with gear. They rehearsed while stepping over beer bottles, dirty clothes, and half-broken amps. The mix of poverty and ambition thickened their sound. Every fight and every sleepless night turned into a riff, a drum beat, or a scream that pushed them closer to their first real breakthrough. That breakthrough came through blood and chaos. In 1986, Axl signed his first management deal after pulling a shocking stunt during a show. He reportedly cut himself with a razor blade to get the attention of scouts. It was extreme and dangerous, but it worked. After releasing their Live Like a Suicide EP, the band landed a demo deal with Geffen Records. Suddenly, the same guys who couldn't afford dinner were standing on the edge of a career that was about to explode. And then, Appetite for Destruction arrived in July 1987. At first, it barely sold. Only about 18,000 copies moved in the first months. But slowly, the numbers began to climb. By October, they hit 150,000. When MTV started playing Sweet Child of Mine in early 1988, everything changed. The song was inspired by Axl's girlfriend Erin Everly, and it pushed the album into a new world. By the end of that year, it had sold 6 million copies. By 2008, it had sold 18 million in the US and more than 30 million worldwide. It became the best-selling debut album in US history and even outperformed Michael Jackson's Bad in the American market during 1987. One moment, they were living off $5 a day. The next, they were rewriting rock history. Even the album cover created controversy. The original artwork by Robert Williams showed a robot attacking a woman, and retailers refused to sell it. Only around 30,000 copies were printed before it was banned. Geffen switched it to the skull and crossbones design based on Axl's tattoo. The scandal only added more fuel to their rising fame. Their music videos added even more fire. The video for Welcome to the Jungle was shot on September 28, 1987 for just $1,500. It was filmed in a single day, and MTV almost refused to air it. After some negotiations, the video aired once at 5 in the morning on a Sunday. Viewers flooded MTV with requests, and suddenly, the band had an unstoppable wave behind them. That wave kept pushing, even into dangerous territory. In 1988, during the Paradise City tour, their concert in St. Louis spiraled into a riot after Axl jumped into the crowd. The chaos led to injuries, property damage, and a $50,000 fine. St. Louis blacklisted them for years. The moment became one of the wildest scenes in rock history, and it set a pattern that followed them around the world. That same year, GNR Lies came out with One in a Million, a song that caused massive backlash because of racial and homophobic slurs in the lyrics. Axl defended it as a reflection of his personal experiences. Critics called it hate speech. Concerts drew protests. Radio stations refused to play it. The reaction wrapped the band in another layer of controversy that never really left them. It started with long nights inside studios that felt more like pressure cookers than creative rooms, and it kept going until everyone was running on fumes. From January 1990 to through August 1991, Guns N' Roses moved between A&M Record Plant and Conway, chasing a sound that kept slipping away each time they thought they had it. Axl Rose pushed for perfect takes, sometimes asking for 50 tries on a single song, and each new attempt stretched the budget until it reached an unbelievable $13 million. Whole mixes were thrown away more than once. They even brought in Bill Price from the Sex Pistols after sessions with Bob Clearmountain failed to land. The work never slowed down, even when the band hit the road for their massive world tour. Songs were finished during days off, with tired faces and shaky hands trying to hold everything together. The pressure lit fires inside the band. People turned to substances to keep going, and the weight of exhaustion pulled everyone down. Some crew members overdosed. Some musicians barely held on. Still, the albums came out on September 17, 1991, and they exploded, selling more than 35 million copies and proving that chaos can sometimes give birth to something unforgettable. Right after that, the story narrowed into another legend. In 1992, they filmed the music video for November Rain, and the cost hit $1.5 million, which made it the most expensive music video in the world at that time. Axl Rose took control of it like a director obsessed with the dream he had to bring alive. The video stretched to 9 minutes and showed him proposing to Stephanie Seymour, turning their real love into a cinematic scene. They shot in a Los Angeles church, brought in a string orchestra, and built elaborate sets that made the whole thing look bigger than most films. When it premiered on MTV in December 1992, fans stopped everything to watch. Critics compared it to grunge videos that were simple and raw, but fans fell into the epic feel and helped push the Use Your Illusion albums to that 35 million mark. It became a moment everyone talked about, partly because of the music and partly because of the sheer extravagance. But chaos always found its way back. On January 20th, 1991, they stepped onto the Rock in Rio stage in front of almost 250,000 fans, a crowd so massive that Guinness later called it one of the biggest concerts in history. Energy was wild, but it didn't take long for it to tilt. Axl stopped mid-song after sound issues set him off, and the pause cracked the tension open. A stampede followed. Dozens were injured as security struggled to calm a storm that swept through the whole stadium. Newspapers all over the world carried the story. It locked in the idea that this band could bring magic or bring disaster, and sometimes both at once. Soon after, another fire started when Back Off Bitch resurfaced on Use Your Illusion Re. Axl had written it in 1981 about an ex-girlfriend, long before the band even existed. The lyrics hit like an open wound, full of anger that pushed people to argue about misogyny and the treatment of women in rock. In a 1992 Rolling Stone interview, Axl said the rage came from the damage he carried from childhood, from rejection by his mother and abuse by his stepfather. He talked about therapy and how he was trying to understand himself. But the release of the song pulled critics into debates that lasted for months. It added another layer to the band's reputation and reminded the world how messy and emotional the heart of their music really was. Then came the Use Your Illusion tour from May 1991 to July 1993. The numbers were huge. It earned more than $100 million, but behind the success, everything felt unstable. Axl often arrived hours late, and crowds grew restless. In Montreal in 1992, his voice gave out, and he left early. Fans erupted, and a riot followed. Damages reached $400,000. He later faced a $50,000 fine and 2 years of probation. St. Louis had its own disaster and banned the band for life. These moments made the tour unforgettable, not only for the size of the shows, but also for the storms they left behind. One of the worst nights came at the Riverport Amphitheater on July 13, 1991. During Rocket Queen, Axl saw someone in the crowd taking photos without permission. He shouted for security to stop it, and when nothing happened, he jumped into the audience, tackled the fan, grabbed the camera, and climbed back on stage. Right after that, he thanked the lame security and walked off. The crowd exploded. A 3-hour riot tore through the amphitheater. Equipment was destroyed, fireworks went off. More than $200,000 in damage piled up. People were hurt, and police made arrests. Axl was charged with inciting the riot, but a judge later said he wasn't directly responsible. The band stayed away from St. Louis for almost 25 years. Then the story took a darker turn back to 1989. Sheila Kennedy, a Penthouse model, met Axl at a New York nightclub in February. She went went with him to his hotel suite and saw him in an aggressive encounter with another model. After that, she said he dragged her by the hair, tied her hands with pantyhose, and assaulted her without checking for consent. She later said she lived with emotional and physical trauma for years. She filed a lawsuit in 2023 under New York's Adult Survivors Act. In 2024, the case was settled privately. Rose denied the allegations publicly, but her lawsuit described deep, lasting damage. Trouble followed him into his relationship with Stephanie Seymour around 1991. It was full of intense passion and violent fights. Seymour said that during one argument, he grabbed her, dragged her through broken glass, and hit and kicked her. Rose claimed she attacked him first and grabbed him in a way that sparked the brawl. Their painful dynamic became part of the breakup scenes in November Rain. After they split, both filed lawsuits. Seymour said he assaulted her. Rose said she assaulted him and stole more than $100,000 in jewelry. They settled the cases out of court. Reports said Rose owed her $1 million. Seymour later called the relationship a huge mistake. Inside the band, more cracks formed. Steven Adler was fired in 1990 because his heroin addiction kept stopping the band from moving forward. He sued them for wrongful termination, but the court sided with Guns N' Roses. Then in 1993, Rose sued Adler for $2.5 million, saying Adler's addiction had hurt their finances and image. They settled with Adler agreeing to give Rose 15% of his future royalties. Adler's struggles were covered everywhere, showing how painful fame can become. The problems didn't stop in the new century. In 2021, after a concert in Pennsylvania, Axl threw a mic stand that hit a fan. She sued him in 2022 for assault and negligence. It wasn't the first time he had thrown things into the crowd, but this one turned into a formal legal battle. After the third similar incident, he finally stopped doing it to avoid more trouble. The case became another reminder of how risky his onstage behavior could be. Things inside the band fell apart even more in 1996. Slash walked away in October after tension with Axl reached a point he couldn't accept. Axl had hired his childhood friend Paul Tobias without talking to the rest of the band. Slash felt pushed aside and betrayed. He said the final moment came when Rose's lawyers handed him a contract that forced him and Duff to sign on to a new lineup that didn't feel like the real band. Slash said later that he didn't leave the band, he just didn't want to continue with the new version Axl had created. Their classic sound disappeared and was replaced by Axl's ideas about electronica and industrial rock. Slash's departure became a turning point and pushed the band toward the long road that led to Chinese democracy. By 1997, both Duff McKagan and Matt Sorum were gone too. Axl became the last original member standing. Chinese democracy started in 1997 and didn't come out until November 2008. 14 years of recording, 14 years of changes, 14 years of constant costs. The total hit $13 million. Every month, the studio alone cost $50,000. Engineers earned $25,000 each month and techs earned $6,000. Geffen Records stopped paying in 2005 and Axl had to cover the rest. When the album finally arrived, it entered the Billboard 200 at number 3. The music surprised people, but the spending and delays stunned them even more. During that time, another legal fight burst open. In March 2001, manager Irving Azoff sued Axl for $1.87 million in unpaid fees. Axl countersued, saying Azoff sabotaged the band by trying to push him into a reunion tour instead of supporting the new lineup. He said Azoff's decisions caused big losses and derailed tour plans across Canada, Asia, and South America. Axl also said Azoff misled him about a possible super tour with Van Halen. Live Nation stepped in later, and by 2011 the lawsuits were settled privately. Amid all this turmoil, Axl tried building a new version of the band. In 1998, he flew bassist Tommy Stinson first class and reportedly gave him a $100,000 signing bonus. Chinese democracy ended up with 14 different producers. Even Dr. Dre worked briefly on early tracks before leaving because of creative disagreements. The sessions moved between 14 different studios, and and used dozens of musicians and engineers. The constant shifting kept the album in motion for years. Axl's world started to shrink right after the Use Your Illusion tour ended in 1993, and it happened fast enough that people barely recognized him once the dust settled. He slipped out of public life and settled into that Malibu mansion where the lights stayed low and the curtains stayed closed. Years passed in a kind of strange silence. From 1994 to 2001, he drifted through nights that felt endless, gaining more than 50 pounds, letting his beard grow long, and moving like someone who only came alive after sunset. Studio sessions became his whole world. He worked through the night, slept during the day, and rarely stepped outside, as if he could outrun everything that had hurt him by staying hidden. The band's collapse weighed on him. So did lawsuits. So did memories from his childhood that he never talked about publicly, but carried everywhere. People barely saw him in those years. One sighting at a KROQ event in 1996, a strange airport moment in 1998, then nothing again. All that silence started rumors, but inside that silence, he kept writing, kept shaping music, and kept fighting the things that haunted him. Those years became a legend, all their own. When Coachella came calling in 2016, the world felt the shock. Fans never thought Axl and Slash would stand in the same room again, let alone share a stage. But they met quietly, face to face, and talked through almost 20 years of tension. Later, Slash explained that most of their problems came from management and not from any deep hatred. Duff returned easily, but Izzy Stradlin held back, choosing his own path away from the spotlight. The reunion announcement in January 2016 felt like a spark in dry grass. By April, when they walked onto that Coachella stage, the crowd roared like they'd been waiting forever. It was the first time the classic trio had stood side by side since the mid-90s, and something about that moment glued the past and present together in a way no one thought possible. Soon, the Not in This Lifetime tour rolled forward and changed everything again. From 2016 to 2019, the tour brought in more than $584 million, with 158 shows in North America and over 200 worldwide. More than 5 million tickets sold, the third highest-grossing tour in history. All while Axl's voice seemed to sharpen again. Years of new training helped him find cleaner notes, steadier breath, and range that surprised even longtime fans. Without the pressure of releasing a new album, the band leaned into the classics and delivered night after night. Each show averaged $3.7 million. It turned into one of the great rock comebacks and put Axl back under a spotlight that finally felt earned. But the spotlight brings trouble too. In 2021, a fan in Pennsylvania sued him after getting hurt by a mic stand he'd thrown into the crowd. It reminded people of older incidents, and the criticism poured in. Then another moment in 2022 pushed the issue even further. Axl finally said he would stop throwing mic stands completely. He admitted it wasn't worth the risk anymore. It was strange hearing that kind of shift from him, but also real proof that even wild frontmen can evolve. Then came 2022 again, this time with Axl suing a Texas gun shop for using the name Guns N' Roses. He won the injunction, stopping the shop from using the band's name. Protecting the brand mattered to him, especially with its growing value. It was one more reminder that the legacy had become something worth guarding closely. As the decade moved forward, something else happened that no one expected. Axl's voice surged back in a way fans hadn't heard since the early 90s. By 2023 and 2024, reviewers talked about high notes in Sweet Child O' Mine and November Rain that echoed his old prime. Vocal coaches praised the new technique. Fans in Buenos Aires and Tokyo said he hit notes that had been missing for decades. Clean tone instead of strain. Relaxed folds instead of shredding. It felt like a second wind. For many, it became the strongest chapter of his live career. Then came the 2022 Power Trip Festival, where Guns N' Roses headlined one night and AC/DC performed the next. The crowd whispered about a surprise crossover since Axl had filled in for Brian Johnson back in 2016 for 24 shows, but he kept his focus on his own set. 3 hours of music, classics mixed with deeper cuts. The festival drew more than 100,000 people across the weekend, and their set became one of the standout moments of the entire reunion era. March 2025 brought another shift. Isaac Carpenter stepped in as the new drummer, replacing Frank Ferrer after 19 years. The band described the split as friendly, but the the change still felt big. Carpenter arrived with experience, with roots in AWOL Nation and Duff's side project Loaded, and with a personal history of loving the band since high school. His first show with them in Seoul in May 2025 showed his tight rhythm and clean groove, and critics said the band sounded sharper than before. Fans agreed. It felt like fresh energy flowing into old bones. Not everything ran smooth, though. On October 18, 2025, in Buenos Aires, Axl had a sudden onstage blow-up. During Welcome to the Jungle, he threw his microphone toward Isaac's kit, kicked the bass drum, and stormed offstage. The clip went viral instantly. Later, the band explained that his in-ear monitors failed, giving him nothing but drums in his ears. Slash confirmed that Axl tried to signal the issue, but wasn't understood. He returned to finish the show, and Slash told fans to calm down. It wasn't personal. It was just technical trouble that spiraled fast. A few months earlier, in July 2025, another moment spread online. Axl tripped and fell during a show in Mexico City. Instead of panicking, he laughed and kept going. No injury, no break in the performance. Even Slash and Duff joked about it later, saying that his ability to push through anything is one of the reasons he remains unforgettable. Then he turned 63 on February 6, 2025, and fans across social media filled the day with memories, performances, and messages about the impact he'd had on them. Some had noticed small slips on stage, but most waved them off as normal for someone touring at that level. Many pointed out how strong his voice still sounded. After a brief microphone glitch in October 2025, the band explained that it was equipment, not Axl himself. Fans kept saying the same thing. He looked happier than ever. He carried himself like someone still hungry for the stage. In September 2025, he stepped into a new world with a graphic novel called Axl Rose: Appetite for Destruction. It was a neon-soaked cyberpunk story set in a twisted paradise city, with Axl reimagined as a half-human, half-robot character pulled into a conspiracy after the disappearance of a mysterious lounge singer. It was co-created with Sumerian Comics and promised to grow into a series. Pre-orders opened that month, and shipments were planned for January 2026. Fans were stunned by the creative leap and said it showed a side of Axl they had never imagined. By 2026, the band was back on another world tour, starting in Monterrey on March 28th and running through Brazil, Europe, and North America until September. The North American leg included the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, their first time there in more than 30 years. Support acts ranged from Public Enemy to the Black Crowes to Ice Cube. The festivals drew huge crowds, especially Monsters of Rock in Brazil and Download in the UK, and rumors swirled about possible surprise appearances from Izzy. The shows mixed classic hits with new material and marked yet another high point for a band that refused to fade. December 2025 brought two new singles, Nothin' and Atlas. Nothin' felt soft and reflective, a piano-driven piece that showed Axl's evolving artistry. Atlas snapped back into loud guitars and sharp vocals that reminded fans of the band's earliest sound. Both climbed the charts quickly and stirred excitement ahead of the 2026 tour. Through all of this, the band kept stepping into historic festivals. Monsters of Rock in São Paulo on April 4th, 2026. Download in Donington that June. Tens of thousands showed up. Many waited for the chance that Izzy might walk out for a song or two. Even without surprises, the performances became highlights of the entire tour season. And behind everything stood Axl himself, the only constant member since 1985. His voice remained one of the rarest in rock, stretching across a 5-octave range from F1 to BB6. Studies in 2024 placed him above artists like Mariah Carey and Prince for vocal range. His highest note came from Ain't It Fun on The Spaghetti Incident. His lowest from There Was a Time on Chinese Democracy. Even in his 60s, he could leap from deep growls to piercing highs that defined songs like Sweet Child O' Mine and November Rain. Money followed the legacy. His net worth passed $230 million, thanks to touring, streaming, and merchandise. The Not in This Lifetime tour alone brought in more than $430 million worldwide, with Axl earning close to $20 million from that run. He lived privately, surrounded by mansions, rare cars like the Porsche 918 Spider and Ferrari F60 Enzo, and a collection that included unusual and macabre items. shrunken heads among them. He kept distance from social media, rarely giving interviews, which only added to the mystery around him. Yet his influence kept spreading. Bands from grunge to nu metal felt echoes of his early sound. He supported Soundgarden and Nirvana before their rise. He bonded with Shannon Hoon. The raw force of appetite for destruction helped open doors for bands like Pearl Jam and Soundgarden. Even newer artists like Post Malone and Greta Van Fleet pointed to him as inspiration. His punk leanings on the spaghetti incident showed how easily he crossed styles, encouraging others to do the same.